Shabbat Shalom. Marshall, let's go. Sorry, I got the whole thing all worked out, but I love you. Thank you. Hi, honey. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Yedi nefesh av harachaman mishol chavdecha eretz onecha yarutz avdecha kimolaya ishtachave el mularecha yeravo yididutecha menof etzuf v'chov ta'am ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So nice to see everybody, and welcome to those of you who are live streaming. We're so glad to have you as well. We now form every Friday evening at this time a larger community in two parts, those who are present and those who are present to themselves. So we have a wonderful technology that allows us to be together. We hope that some of you will begin to consider coming back, because there's nothing like a filled sanctuary. So we're hoping that you will join us live before too long. But until that time, we're delighted that you are with us. We're going to continue with the blessings over the Shabbat candles. We are going to read on page 3.
Let us light these lights for the world tonight. Let our hearts unite in the light, in the light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Let us light these lights for the world tonight. Let our hearts unite in the light, in the light, in the light, in the light, in the light.
Read with me on page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. We're going to continue now at the bottom of page 6, and let's read responsively. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, pains to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. Continuing now at the bottom of page 27. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence.
Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my days be as the one before, lest routine set my ways. Lamdei Barich v'yitpalel Lameret siftotai Bracha v'shir halel Lamdeini Elohai Barich v'yitpalel Lamedet siftotai bracha v'shir halel.
We turn now to page 28, and as you are able, I invite you to rise for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Together, praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. On page 31, praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim.
Shema Yisrael
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kivon Le'olam Abad.
Together, hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. You may be seated. We continue now on page 36, together with the chanting of the V'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך בשילנתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Before we recite the V'ahavta in English together, I just want to make a comment or two about the ideas in the V'ahavta. The main imperative is to love God. When Maimonides talks about the love of God, what he is interested in is the vehicles which might lead to a love of God. There are two for Maimonides. One is to observe the natural order and to see the lawfulness of the way the world works. And having seen that, having seen the works of God, one wants to know the author of those works. Let's use the analogy of a great piece of music, a Mozart sonata. When we hear the sonata, we yearn to know more about the composer behind the sonata. So too for Maimonides, the study of science, the study of the natural world, the use of reason is an instrument that can lead us through appreciation to the love of God, a reconciliation, if you will, between science and religion. Here, the V'ahavta goes in the other direction. If I want to love God, here is what I ought to do in order to express my love of God. Take to heart these instructions. Teach our children. Recite them. Bind them for a sign on your hand and for frontlets between your eyes. The rituals of tefillin, or as the Rashbam, the grandson of Rashi, claims, these are really the work of our hands and the work of our minds. So the Rashbam moves in a different direction from the way the tradition treats the meaning of these phrases. The love of God, one of the great imperatives which cause us to soar ever upward. Let's read these lines together. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Turning now to page 42. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and our coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai porei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoenu l'chaim, l'chaim. ולשלום ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום. May God bless us as we go out and guard us on our way from this time forth and forevermore. Bless us for life, bless us for peace. La la la, la la la. Ya la 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 la.
We turn now to page 46, and as you are able, I invite you to rise for the Amida.
Adonai, sifata tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei avotenu v'yemotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול הגיבור ונורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניכם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה, רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומרית הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחייך כל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל.
At the top of page 53, let's read together. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence like lightning illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated. Continuing now on page 61. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, bashalom.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל Shalom Rab, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab, Shalom Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim.
We have moments now for silent prayer.
Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Bimru Amen Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. V'imru Amen.
I'd like to share something with you that's been weighing somewhat heavily on my heart in the last few months. And I'm grappling with something tough. About a year ago, I was in a meeting talking about services, and in passing, someone said, for our adult services, and I paused the conversation for a moment and asked, our adult services? Hoping to receive some clarity about what she meant. To which she quickly responded, no, I meant our regular Friday night services. And it hit me in that moment that our services are perceived by some in a certain lens. Adult services. And I paused to think for a moment because adult services, in my view, have an expiration date. What happens when our adults grow out of services, if you will? Who will be there after them? And the same idea came up again a few weeks ago when I was speaking to two really thoughtful congregants about children coming to our services. And the three of us grappled, going back and forth about the positive and the challenges. The noise children create is difficult, but it's so wonderful to see their little faces. But they're our distraction to our spiritual experience. But Lador Vador, they are the keepers of our Torah in the future. So what do we do? Naturally, I turn to Torah. This week we begin the book of Leviticus with Parashat Vayikra. And I'd like to share the first 15 opening words before we even get to any of the rich content we receive in this Torah portion. And it reads like this. Vayikra el Moshe, Vaydaber Adonai elav me'ohel moed lemor, daber el bnei Israel ve'amarta elehem. Adonai called out to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, Moses, speak to the Israelite people and say to them. Now, I'm going to leave you in suspense, but I'm not going to tell you what God or Moses said for now. But know that it's a special moment in which God disseminates what will become our Jewish practice that Moses will help the Israelites navigate. God reaches to Moses, and Moses' first task is to gather the Israelites and share what he has learned. The first responsibility Moses is given before anything is to gather all of the Israelites, then teach them. If Moses had kept all that God had given him to himself, and we exclusively relied on Moses to be the sole holder of our practice, I don't think any of us would be sitting here or on Zoom or live stream today, for that matter. The book of Leviticus is special. It doesn't read in narrative form like Genesis or Exodus. It takes place in the wilderness, a 40-year transitional period of learning, where the Israelites must work together to construct a portable sanctuary, a tabernacle or tent of meeting. And nearly all of Leviticus presents itself as taking place at that sanctuary where God speaks to Moses, giving him instruction to be conveyed to the people of Israel. What would have happened if Moses never gathered the Israelites to share the message? And I'm sure many of you are thinking the Israelites Moses gathered were adults and they weren't children. Children don't have the same responsibilities as adults, and there is some truth to that. But luckily for us, we are not trapped in the wilderness or about to journey for 40 years across the desert. Most of us pay a mortgage and are staying put. Perhaps if we did live in the same wilderness as the Israelites, it would be easier to disseminate our tradition because our kids would have nothing else to do but to play in sand. But the reality is, as many of you know, our kids are not traversing a desert with nothing else to do. Our kids today are overprogrammed, overstimulated, encounter anti-Semitism in schools, college, and are finding a very difficult time finding spirituality that speaks to them in this day and age. We, as a community, have to very carefully and thoughtfully craft a Jewish openness for them to feel a sense of belonging in order to have them remain a part of our tradition. So what can we do? Well, I'd like to suggest that we, like in the book of Leviticus, decide what we want our modern-day tabernacle or tent of meeting looks like. And I want to be clear in all of this, I'm not saying I have the perfect answer, because I don't. What I do want is your partnership in thinking about this together and figuring out how together we can help all of our members prioritize Judaism. And this is not a one-time conversation. Nothing is in Judaism. It is a forever ongoing process in which we have to adjust, modernize, and continue to work on together. One of the many reasons, and there are many, I love being a rabbi is that I always have to think and rethink and rethink and rethink. Every single part of my day, truly, includes the following question: what about this can I share with my community? Whether I'm grocery shopping, going to a conference, listening to a new song, making a new discovery in my prayer, truly everything. My rabbinate is about making meaning in my life, and Judaism, for me, is the conduit. And then in turn, share it with my people. This thought process led me to ask the question, when do we start raising our children to be Jewish? As you can imagine, my answer is the minute they're born. Starting with baby naming, the Brit Milah, the foods they try for the first time, the rituals they witness, and then later take ownership over, the prayers they hear at home, the candlesticks they prominently see on that shelf, knowing they only get taken down on Friday evenings and special holidays. So in thinking about when to start to raise our children Jewishly, the question morphs into, what is important about Judaism in your family unit? And then, consequently, what do you do about it? Because the reality is, do as I say and not as I do, we have grown to learn is ineffective. Our children, and when I say our children, I really mean our collective community's children, our younger generation, will do what they see us doing. And this is the most powerful endowment we can offer our next generation. If we want our children to love Jewish learning, they need to see us engaging in it. If we want our kids to feel comfortable at B'nai Mitzvah without having to cram it in the months before and create real meaning in that service, they need to pray with us. If Jewish culture is important to us, then our children need to cook with us, dance with us, watch Jewish films, listen to Jewish podcasts. The synagogue should feel like the children's second home and not be a forced and strange experience as they hit puberty. They're already going through a lot at that time. Big Tent Judaism, formerly the Jewish Outreach Institute, initiated a study in the summer of 2016 to learn more about the experience of being Jewish among Jewish millennials, and to better understand how this population demonstrates its connection to being Jewish. Part of the study proved to be challenging from the outset because this population, millennials in particular, appear to be elusive and hard to reach. And as I read this initial challenge, I was already disturbed. Hard to reach means not connected. They managed in the end to survey nearly 600 people, including a series of open-ended survey questions with optional one-on-one interviews conducted by staff members. Here are two big takeaways from this survey. The first is that even among those who are actively involved in Jewish life and those who are proud to be Jewish have experienced times in which the Jewish community has been unwelcoming to them. These experiences make them more cautious about further engagement with the organized community and its institutions. Moreover, even for those who are Jewishly active, they do not describe themselves as being spiritual or see Judaism as fulfilling their spiritual needs. Ugh. The second notable conclusion was that beyond time and cost, there were two items mentioned by almost all of the respondents. The synagogue and the organized Jewish community are not adapting to meet the expressed needs of the generation. This is a particular challenge as the generation finds itself in the historical trajectory several generations away from the immigrant experience of American Jews. Before we analyze the results of the study, I'd actually like to show you a unique phenomenon in this week's Torah portion. The first word of this week's Torah portion, as I mentioned before, is va'ikra, to call out. when God calls out to Moses. And if you look at the picture, I know it's a little hard to see. I promise I'll pass it around. This is the first word, and the Aleph, which is the last letter, or can't or see, but we'll pass it around, thank you. The Aleph, which is the last letter of this word, is printed small. And this isn't a typo. This shows up in all of our Torahs. Thank you, Cantor. Rabbis have hypothesized as to why this is, and some argue that it represents the unconditional love that God and the Jewish people have for one another. Others say it's because Moses was passing the word of God onto the people and was cautious with every articulation. And there are so many more explanations and theories. I'd like to add one more this evening. The small aleph is a reminder. It is a symbol to va'ikra, to call out to others, while simultaneously making room for them and for us to exist in the same moment of time and space. And in so doing, we both honor and respect each other's needs and good wishes for the future. So too must we find the space in our temple walls for all who want to continue their Jewish journey into the future. We were once strangers in Egypt, not in our synagogue. Our synagogue is a safe place to gather, to be with one another, and worship with diversity of age, race, color, opportunity, and more. We must keep the flaps of our tabernacle open on all sides. It is a privilege to partake and witness our Jewish practice blend into our hearts and souls of the future generations. And by the way, many of our millennials who are so hard to reach at this time are also choosing to have children in this time in their life. Are we willing to lose them? And if so, at what cost? As we chanted the Ve'ahavta in both Hebrew and English just a few moments ago, we said the ancient words from Deuteronomy. Ve'yu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. V'shinantam levanecha. Impress them upon your children, which is what Moses did in this Torah portion. He took God's instructions into his heart and passed it to the Israelites. Let us take the lessons we have learned from this study and turn it around. We should not just tolerate members of our next generation in synagogue life, but rather offer a warm and loving embrace of openness. We must share of ourselves to them and help guide them in their Jewish journey so they one day can shepherd the next generation and the one after that. Let us continue to find creative and loving ways to ensure that our future sees themselves in our Torah and have the ability to articulate their personal connection to Judaism. Shabbat Shalom. With Torah in our hearts and in our midst, we turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing of body, soul, mind, and spirit. If you would like to share the name of anyone who is in need of healing, I invite you to say their name now as my gaze meets yours. To those names we add Avigail, Sarah, Bat Rachel Veitzchak, Paula Cohen, Barry Cott, Thomas Cullinan, Scott Davis, Dr. Marshall Griffith, John Goodman, Mike Healy, Margie Hodes, Maddie Jefferson, Joel Mandel, Walter McCoyd, Richard Moore, Edith and Levi Rubenstein, and Bob Shippey. I invite you to join us on page 253 for the Mishaberach.
Mishaberach Abotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bishaberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
I invite you to please rise as you are able and join us on page 282 for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, בגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated.
At this time in our service, our minds turn to those whom we have lost, to those whom we have lost, and in one way or another are still with us, to those who have made us who we are, and to those upon whose shoulders we stand. And this week, we especially think of those who were laid to rest within the last week. We think of Leroy Wilson, Jr., and we also think of those who were laid to rest within the last 30 days, for whom we are within the Shloshim. Manuel Bernholtz, Homer E. Gurin, Eddie Ponitz, Rita Perlman, Bobby Fisher-Kersey, H. Bernard Bernie Smith, Sheila Nathanson Lokshin, Flora Jean Brodsky, Francis Fisher, Maxine Doris Frutkin, Norman Gross, and Eileen Shaw. And we recall with love those whose yahrzeits occur at this time. Lois Wendy Abrams, Jesse Alsbacher, Myrtle R. Alcho, Abe E. Amster, Shia M. Arsham, Charles E. Asherman, Celia Auerbach, Manuel Bernholtz, Abe H. Berg, Herman Bernheimer, Rose Bernstein, Ibram C. Beigelson, Estelle Aaron Blattner, Carol Lader Buchhalter, Roberta Friedman, Dr. Lewis H. Brooks, Ruth Becker Kahn, David J. Cohen, Birdie Stoddard Cole, Edwin R. Cole, Lily A. Copenhagen, Fanny Mayer Dreyfus, Herman H. Felsman, William B. Fish, Eugene Freed, Mina Kleeman Friedberg, Janet Cole Friedman, Molly Friedman, Dr. Morris E. Gans, Joel C. Gellin, Manuel Gurdy, Stanley I. Goldberg, Emily Goldsmith, Florence Goldstein, Harry P. Gross, Herman Gurin, Nathan Gurin, Norman Harris, Rebecca Heller, Cassidy Stark Impink, Dr. Nathan B. Jaffe, Thomas Jordan, Irving Kane, Dr. Emmanuel Klaus, Jacob A. Klein, Matilda B. Clivens, Ida Kraselski, Harold B. Krause, Maxwell L. Lappin, Pauline Rothschild Legum, Judy Lesser, Annie Levin, Lucille R. Levin, Rebecca Wolf Luntz, Martha B. Markowitz, Merle W. Marks, Blanche M. Mayer, Lena Mendelson, Marvin Oppenheim, Dorothy K. Orkin, Mildred Levy Pickus, Jack Pearson, Edward Eddie Ponitz, Joan Ponitz, Herman Rich, Constance Zucker Ryder, Dr. Harry J. Reamer, Marvin Ritzenberg, Penny Ganga Robins, Samuel S. Rosenthal, George Rothstein, Dorothy Savransky, Carolyn Schartenberg, Irvin R. Schumann, Bernice G. Schwartz, Dr. Edward D. Schwartz, Jack H. Schwartz, Esther Zeidman, Ida Senor, Marvin Seamus, Irving M. Silver, Virginia Horkheimer Silver, Lawrence E. Simon, Ernst Spacone, Rose Pollock Spear, Wilbur A. Stoyer, Harold M. Strauss, Charles Tillis, David Tomarkin, Aaron E. Tratner, Sylvester L. Traub, Grace G. Warren, Jerome A. Weinberger, Dennis Weisman, Sidney M. White, Samuel D. Wise, Monroe M. Worth, Francis Selman Zake, and Clarice Zeev. If at this time you are mourning the passing of a loved one or the yahrzeit of a loved one or a friend whose name has not just been read off this list, or if I mispronounced any of the names on the list, please utter them now that we may recite the Kaddish in their honor together. If at this time you are mourning the passing of a loved one or a friend whom we have lost within the last week, who's been laid to rest within the last week, for whom we're within the Shiva period, I invite you at this moment to please rise. If at this time you are mourning the passing of a loved one or a friend within the last 30 days, for whom we are within the Shloshim, I invite you now to please rise. If you're marking a yahrzeit at this time, I invite you now to please rise. And now, as a caring congregation, let us all rise and prepare to recite the Kaddish. I invite you to join me for the Kaddish on page 294. Please join me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash mei rabah. בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחת ונחמת דאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבא מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. May the source of peace and comfort bring peace and comfort to us and to all who mourn. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. At this time in our service, it has become our custom to shift from moments of memory to moments of recognition, to moments of celebration, to moments of gratitude for the goodness in our lives. And as we are about to recite the Shechianu, I would like to especially mention a couple of items of real celebration. The first, Howard Mack is celebrating his 65th birthday on March 27th, coming up in just a few days. And it was Jane and Howard's 27th wedding anniversary on March 23rd, within the last week, just now. And so Mazel Tov to the Macks. And many, many happy returns. Dr. Danny Glick, celebrating a milestone birthday. We're just going to say milestone birthday this past Tuesday. So happy birthday, happy birthday.
He's still a very young man. It's a young milestone.
That's right. So we leave it at that, but happy birthday. And I will add to this, our Muslim friends have this week started to celebrate the Ramadan, and so to our Muslim friends I say Ramadan Kareem. Now they started celebrating on Wednesday evening, the Ramadan. Are there any other Shechianu moments at this time? Is there anyone else who has anything else to contribute to our moment of celebration? Well, I think let us sing the Shechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Our closing song is, I believe, Shalom Aleichem on page 323.
Yes, and Rabbi, while this melody is not a new melody to the world, I think it's a new melody to our congregation. So I think
another Shechianu.
Another Shechianu moment. Thank you. That's true. First time we're going to do this melody. I hope by the second verse you'll all be able to join in. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LeShalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was verses 1 and 2. I don't know if anybody was singing. Let's try verses 3 and 4. Here we go. Baruch Hu Nila Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Verse 4. Tzedchem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Malachem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Malachem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Next time.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
I wasn't
it's a
going
fun
to.
melody. Next time we'll sing it together.
Fun melody,
Okay.
yes. I wasn't going to try it, but I am going to try to participate in the Kiddush.
All right,
and the
this
motzi.
one,
Let's
this one we
bless
all
our
know.
wine.
Everyone knows this. I'm wondering if any of our younger friends, Jack, we have a young lady back there. Jack, would you like to join us? Maddie, you want to come up and help with Kiddush and Motzi? You haven't graduated high school yet. Come on. Almost. Do you want to join us? Okay, that's all right. Next time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באחווה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת אמן. לחיים? Maddie, would you like to grab the challah? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Amen.
Amen. May the doors of this temple, may the doors of our congregations be wide enough to accept all the children of Israel, of the coming generation and of the generations to come. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Amen.